So, in terms of the teacher, the knowledge and the expertise that teachers need to have, Schulman identified a number of areas. One, again, subject matter content knowledge. In other words, teachers need to know about English, and they need to speak English well. The second area is pedagogical content knowledge. Now, this means that teachers need to be able to transfer and to adapt and to organize their own knowledge of language to be able to make it amenable to learners. So it's how do I present what I know so that learners can learn it? The third area is around curriculum knowledge. In other words, knowing what the program that I'm teaching and the other programs that came before and come later, what do they include? What materials help me present that program? What other subjects my learners are learning? This is particularly relevant when we teach in the primary or secondary or further education sector or higher education sector. But also what's called vertical knowledge. So what comes first? What comes later? This is essential knowledge that every teacher should have. Of course, general pedagogic knowledge, learning how to teach. Not just English, but things like discipline and classroom management. Knowing my learners and knowing what they're like, knowing what helps them learn, knowing what the barriers are to learning, knowing where I work and knowing the characteristics of my workplace, and knowing why my students need to learn this. What is the ultimate goal of this program? So this is Schulman in Borg. Interestingly, Maldres and Weddell identify a completely different set, 3 different kinds of knowledge. Very simple. The first one they call knowing about. So knowing about the English language, knowing about the different systems, knowing about the different skills. But also fundamentally, a teacher needs to know how, needs to have skills, teaching skills, personal skills. And the third type, which is even more interesting in my opinion, is what they call knowing to. Now, knowing to is about knowing about and knowing how in the right place at the right time to support learning. So it's about this. It's about being in the moment, and it's about this kind of improvisatory, just like decisions that teachers make. They can't make them without the knowledge how and the knowledge about. They just can't. Diaz-Maggioli quotes the Association for Professional Development in America, and they write a set of expectations of what a professional teacher should know and should be. They say that every teacher should be educated broadly and well, that every teacher should be knowledgeable about the fields to be taught, no Uranians. They should be familiar with how learners develop, how they behave, and how they learn. In other words, the psychology of learning. And that they should be knowledgeable about and skilled in the profession of education, sufficiently to be able to ensure that quality standards are met, that ethics are met, that they have a responsible conduct and a responsiveness to the educational needs of the greater society. So, not just my little language lesson. Can I ask the room whether you are familiar with the meta-research conducted by Professor John Hattie? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, not quite. Okay, just a few people. I think, for me, this is the most exciting piece of work in education at the moment. Why is Hattie's work important? Because he synthesized the results of 900 different research reports and studies about what really helps students achieve their outcomes. So how do teachers make a difference? And Hattie stresses that professional experts, he calls the expert teacher, are fundamental. Why? He says that after the students themselves, the greatest source of variance that can make a difference is the teacher. Is not you guys, is not me, is not the principal, is not the materials, is not the technology, it's the teacher. Therefore, excellence in teaching is the single most powerful influence on student achievement. Just remember this. And he says something that on the surface is quite thought-provoking, because he says teachers' subject matter knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge, the things we were talking about before, they have little effect on the quality of student outcomes. So you're thinking, so what are we saying here? That knowing is not important? No, he's not saying that at all. What he's actually saying is that what matters is how teachers organize and use that knowledge. So yes, they need to know, but there's something even more important. And this is what it is. Hattie says that expert teachers differ from somebody who's been doing the same thing 20 years in the same way in how they organize and use their knowledge, i.e., they have a deeper understanding and a more integrated knowledge of the content they teach. And if you start looking at what he means by that, so what is it that expert teachers do, let's think about what kind of knowledge is being tapped into here. So, expert teachers set challenging goals. They are very sensitive to the context of what's going on. They're excellent seekers and users of feedback information from the learners about the impact they're having on learning. Now, all this is knowing too. So this is a very important message for us and for those of us who are involved in helping teachers develop, grow, and professionalize. Just teaching teachers stuff is not enough. We need higher levels, higher order professional development to help teachers be good knowers too. My problem when I look at all this is that I find it a bit dull. I find it a bit dry. And to me, much as I like all this stuff, the lifeblood of what a professional is doesn't seem to be there. And in my experience, the lifeblood of what a professional is has got to do with other stuff, as well as all that, without denying that. So this is my little list of what a professional, to me, is like. Before everything else, a professional is a creator of a safe and inclusive learning environment. Without that, knowledge just goes. A firmer believer in potential. A facilitator of learning as self-actualization. A professional doesn't just care about teaching my lesson today. A professional cares about educating. A role model of curiosity about language and learning. A successful model of language. A fair assessor, who would argue with that? A congruent practitioner, somebody that has beliefs and assumptions and theories about how learning happens, and you see those in action when they teach. A career-long learner of teaching and learning, somebody who never stops learning. An ongoing analyst on the same theme, an ongoing analyst, evaluator, improver of their own practice, and not just of my own little world of the classroom, but also of my organization, of my field. What Rupert was saying, it's a learner together, somebody who learns with other people. Because of that, he or she is also a peer coach, a mentor, a critical friend to their colleagues, and a team player in an organization.